You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Hey, what good is it to build a business if you're not happy? If you're struggling with negative thoughts, a wrong mindset, or even something more serious like depression or stress or anxiety, mental health is really important for entrepreneurs and business owners and rebelpreneurs all over the world. So I'd like to bring in people who are expert in this area to keep our mental health where it needs to be so that we can perform at peak levels. So I'm really happy to welcome Dr. Holly Sawyer. She is a licensed professional counselor, a national certified counselor, and certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor. Dr. Holly has specialized in providing mental health and substance abuse disorder treatment in a wide variety of settings and populations. She is the owner of Life First Therapy LLC, and she is joining us from Philadelphia. Welcome, Dr. Holly Sawyer, to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. You are obviously the expert here. You are a licensed professional counselor, PhD. So you have been at this, and you know all of the minefields that come up in the life of entrepreneurs. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this area of working with people in their mental health. What's your story?
I got started doing this about 10 years ago. I suffered from depression myself, and I found it extremely hard to find a therapist that looked like me. And then the therapist that I did find, I noticed that not only did they not look like me, they couldn't really relate to like my cultural experiences enough to understand how to help me. So that right there pushed me to be a part of a growing number of Black therapists we see today.
Very good. And so you're really then your target audience, or the people that you work with the most, you are helping professionals of color, it says, to navigate through their career in life while feeling anxious, depressed, or stressed. So you're specifically focusing on that. What is unique about working with people of color? I mean, you've already touched on it a little bit. What's unique in that situation that is not being addressed in other therapies?
Well, I think what's unique is that the cultural experiences that we go through as Black women, that therapists who are not Black may not be able to understand or have an awareness, so that they are better able to help and navigate that space that, for example, one of my clients may be going through professionally. So some of my clients may suffer from depression or anxiety because they're experiencing microaggressions in the workplace, or just as a business owner. And so I help them to navigate that. I help them feel empowered to know that they are validated in how they feel, and they're not basically crazy in things that they are experiencing, and that they're not alone, and that there is help for them to again navigate those spaces.
I really like that, because it is meeting a very specific need that cannot be addressed by someone who's not been there. And on that same level, you're also a woman who can relate to other women who are having specific gender challenges in the workplace or in their business or in their life, right?
You are truly correct. Once I was, seeing a therapist and being able to work through my depression, I said, okay, I'm, now wanting to seek a therapist who can help me out with some of the professional issues that I was having in the workplace. And so again, that just didn't exist for me. And I said, you know what? I wonder how many other Black professional women are going through this microaggression of experience of trying to climb the ladder, constantly being challenged or not being able to really progress in a way that's supportive. What does that look like? And so I said, you know what? I'll step up and I'll take the challenge and I'll become that therapist. And it has been so rewarding.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate the difficulty of trying to be successful. It's hard enough as it is, and then when you add in all of the extra barriers and obstacles and prejudices out there and people's mindsets, it can really put people at a disadvantage. So you help them to navigate these obstacles and to overcome these things. I'm curious from your perspective, what is the most common problem you see with helping the people that you help? I wonder if there is a universal obstacle that you seem to come up against over and over again in your line of work.
I don't know if it's something that's more so universal because every client that I have comes in with their own individual challenges in the workplace. But I do, if I had to narrow it down to just one common theme, it would just be not being respected as a professional who is highly educated and has a lot of years of experience, and they're just not taken seriously. So they're always being demeaned, talked down to. Again, the microaggressions are there. And so having to do that 40 plus hours a week on a daily basis, that can be very, very painful. It takes a toll on one's mental health, let alone physical health, spiritual health. And so, again, I help them to kind of break down all those areas so that when they do have to navigate these spaces, they feel empowered and not having to turn to substances to cope, because I do have some clients that will say, this isn't something that I've been able to do on my own. And, now I use substances to help me really get through my day or when I come home from work and it's becoming a problem. So how can I, not turn to substances? What can I do to really cope and build some tools?
I could sit here and speculate. I think we're having a great conversation and that we need to have more of these conversations. But I got to tell you, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm white. Okay. So what do I know about what you've been through and the things that you experience on a daily basis? Can you give us an example of something that is a lack of respect that maybe it's intentional, maybe it's unintentional, but help us to quantify what this lack of respect looks like in the workplace, because I think there's a misperception among people that this isn't that prevalent, or it's not as bad, or it's not as bad as it used to be. Therefore, this isn't really an issue, or it's just very isolated. Maybe you could speak to the predominance of this even today.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront, because depending on who you talk to and what spaces, what city, what town, people would say, what we're discussing is irrelevant anymore. It just doesn't happen. But I would beg to differ, because it does happen, and especially in Philadelphia, because I have a boatload of clients who come in with, again, the same issue. For example, I have a client who has been with her company for 15 years, has, again, a master's degree, 3 certifications, and applied for a promotion, and she was not chosen for the promotion. The person who was chosen for the promotion was a Caucasian. They were female. They had a high school diploma, and they only had 3 years of experience.
Wow.
And Not only did this happen to my client once, it happened twice, because the first time that it happened, they said, well, no, it's not a race thing. Apply for, maybe the same promotion or another promotion, another department, 2 years. Well, 2-3 years went by, another promotion, was opened as far as for them to apply, and they were looked over, same situation. It repeated itself twice. And so it definitely happens. And this person, turned to alcohol. Very, very, very hurtful, because they have put so much time into this company and being, a great employee, having rave reviews, going through a lot of certifications and education. And then for someone to say, or really not even say, well, say it's not your race, but me and this person who both apply for this position, we don't even match up on paper. So what else could it be?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy that here we are, right, in the 21st century, and people are still making decisions based on race, based on gender. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So,
Yep.
So let's assume, because you would know, you're right there, you're working with people. Let's assume that this is just as much a problem now as it ever has been. What do you say? How do you help people who maybe they're listening to this right now and they're nodding their head and they're saying, yeah, this sounds exactly like the sort of things that I have experienced. What do you say to someone like that? How can they approach these situations in a way that they can be empowered to overcome them and not turn to drugs and alcohol and other coping mechanisms that isn't going to help, and it's really only going to make things worse?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing that I like to tell my clients or people who are experiencing this but are not necessarily in therapy is, one, you want to see if you have a union representative that you can speak to. You definitely want to get HR involved. However, if you don't have a union rep and HR is being very passive, then I would get in contact with your local EEOC so that you're able to provide, documentation as to everything that has led up to this one or maybe several offenses. And if you're finding that you are getting depressed or anxious when you have to report to this environment that is just not supportive of you on a daily basis, go and get a therapist, because at this point you can start to work on your mental health, while hopefully your union rep, HR, and or your EEOC is handling an actual case that you created for yourself. So you don't necessarily have to use substances. And say you don't find a therapist, but you are using substances instead, and it's becoming an issue. At that point, you definitely, you want to seek out a therapist to get help, and just be willing to be honest and talk about what's going on so that you can process how to deal with the situation better. We definitely can't change people's minds and how they view us based on our gender and race, but we can how we respond to those things. I know some people are in positions where they're not able to leave a job that they've been on for 15 years. However, I do work with clients where they are able to transition either to a whole nother career field, or they become an entrepreneur because they develop so many skills and working at a company for 15 and 20 years. So I always kind of look at, all the different options that we have on the table.
I love that. And the big takeaway from everything you just said is get help. Do not sit back. Don't just sit back and take this passively and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Get people involved, get human resources, EEOC, get people with some power involved in your situation and deal with that, but also get help in dealing with your mental and emotional state of being, state of mind here, particularly if you're struggling with being able to cope with this. And it can be very stressful. I mean, life is stressful enough as it is. And then you work your butt off and you have to deal with all of this on top of everything else. Don't go it alone. Don't sit back and say that the way it is, and there's nothing that you can do about it, because there is. And here's an example right here with Dr. Holly Sawyer, who helps people in that very situation. How would working with someone like you really improve their state of mind, improve their chances for success, and really help them to look on this in a different way and really feel empowered as opposed to disempowered?
So I listen attentively to tell the truths that need to be heard. I like to empower the women that I work with by showing them that anything is possible for them to achieve if they're willing to go through, their healing process. Because a lot of times when they're in these spaces, I've had some of my clients report where they're being called, derogatory names, jokes are being made fun of them, and they are experiencing some, traumatic experiences from that. And that makes them, again, feel very anxious and just in a bad mental space. And so I support them going through this entire process when they have their highs and when they have their lows, just allowing them to come here, feel supported, talk about how they feel and what's actually going on, and then coming up with ways that they can identify as far as coping skills and tools that they can use to get through not only the day, but the experience in itself that is happening. Because again, we can't change people per se, but we can change the way we cope with and how we respond to something that is this traumatic and this negative. I don't have too many women that actually stay in those roles, in those job environments, but while they're there and they're transitioning, we work on things that they can do.
Mm-hmm. I really love the emphasis on not trying to change. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if we had the power to change everybody else's attitude and just really snap our fingers and get them to wake up. But we got to give up on this idea that we have the power to change other people's prejudices. I think what you're doing is tremendous, because it helps people to focus on what they can control, which is their response, how they choose to respond to what's going on around them, because that puts them in a place of power. The power is not in being able to convince anybody else. The power is being able to respond appropriately and not self-destruct as a result of what someone else does. Don't let someone else get the satisfaction of your self-destruction, but rise up in the midst of that and overcome right where you're at. I love that. Now, someone listening to this and they're not in Philadelphia, they're, who knows, they're in California, whatever. Is there a way that they can work with you online?
So I'm licensed only in the state of Pennsylvania. However, I am developing some courses online that will be out in the early spring that people can take, that is not actually linked to me providing them actual therapy, but things that they can do, on their own. But as a therapist, I would actually have to be licensed in a state that that person lives. Gotcha.
So you've got some programs coming out. Is it something that you can talk about and share with us?
Sure. So I just came off a 5-city book tour promoting my workbook called It's Time to Talk About Trauma. So this is a workbook basically for people who are not quite ready yet to go to therapy, but they want to do some of their inner work on their own. So the workbook is full of different exercises, assessments based around mental health, substance abuse, and workplace burnout. And so when they are ready to see a therapist, they can take the workbook with them. I even have a script in there that when they do identify therapist, questions they can ask to make sure that it's the right fit. Friday, December the 6th, I'm launching my support group called Power Up for professional women of color who basically just need a support group. They could be entrepreneurs, they could be 9-to-5ers, but they just need that emotional and mental support from other women that are, like them. And then I'm working on my second book, which you and I talked briefly about, but it's basically how to be and remain mentally stable as an entrepreneur. Because like you said, things are hard. But as an entrepreneur, you're doing a lot on your own until you get to a space where you're not. So it, can come with the lack of support, the self-sabotaging, the negative thoughts. So depression can show up because there are high and lows of being an entrepreneur. So what does this look like? How can I remain stable through those dips? And so my next book will be addressing that.
Very, very exciting. Well, there's lots and lots of wisdom and experience in what you're talking about. And so I encourage our listeners, if this is something that you're interested in, or it's something that you need, don't sit there and say, I don't know where to go. Nobody understands me. You can get in touch with Dr. Holly Sawyer and either reach out to her directly or access some of these resources from wherever you are. The website is lifefirstTherapy.com, lifefirstTherapy.com, and we'll have that link on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Dr. Sawyer, thank you so much for your time. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me, Ralph. I really, really enjoyed this conversation and being able to share with your listeners. And I guess my final thought would be, don't be afraid of getting help for anything you can no longer manage on your own. Help is readily available, and no one has to know you're seeing a therapist. Just seek the help you need to live instead of surviving, and make living your priority. Excellent.
Excellent. Good words of wisdom and advice from Dr. Holly Sawyer. She is a licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor, and certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor. Dr. Holly has specialized in providing mental health and substance abuse disorder treatment in a wide variety of settings and populations. You can find out more at lifefirstTherapy.com. Dr. Holly Sawyer, thank you so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.